Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for some morning cosmonarchy and afternoon cosmonarchy. Good morning and good afternoon to all those watching. I'm happy to bring you some more action from the tribunal stage. Looking forward to seeing who is going to make it out. We've got 4 names still in contention as of right now, and we've got the grand final to play in short order. So first we're going to be casting that first semi-final, taking a look at that. Then I will reveal the outcome of the second semi-final, and we will see where the grand final goes. That's because the first semi-final was played earlier, but it was adminned by somebody other than myself, and so since I had to admin the second semi-final, I wasn't going to admin it and then cast it later. I cast it on the spot. Anyway, that is the extent of what we had there. So let's find out. Let's find out, boys. Coffee. The lifeblood of any game development team. We're going to be getting into our semi-final number 1 here, which is, of course, let's just say it's going to be a good one. Okay, guys, it's going to be a very good one. Eventually, we'll even have a SCOSY music. I mean, technically, we have some SCOSY music, but eventually, we will have it working in the game. That's what I can say. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get into semi-final number 1 here on the Pronago YouTube channel. It's the Tribunal stage, round 4. We're going to qualify 1 more player in by the end of the next 3 matches that you'll be seeing on the channel. I'm looking forward to bringing it to you, so let's not hesitate at all and jump into our bracket view. As you can see here, the single elimination bracket is coming to an end. Our final 3 matches, starting off with I Am the Witty God versus Doglived. This is an exciting SCOSY mirror match. And down here, the unlikely Smarty Cakes making it through 2 players he wasn't favored against, and now dueling Nebline. Will the Cinderella run continue? We'll find out in semifinal number 2. Otherwise, it'll just be the bog standard play of Nebline making it to a grand final for one of these tribunals. Looking forward to seeing which is which, so join me today. But first, we got to find out which SCOSY player that Protoss player is going to face. It's guaranteed AVP in the final, which is always cool. And I'm surprised to see the SCOSY doing so well already. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our first map. Now this is Gilded Wall, and it is going to be chosen by Doglived, who is in the bottom left as the Dark Sapphire SCOSY. Godwheat in the bottom right. He's not orange, but he's some other weird color, isn't he? I'll say orange, though. And look at that, he was orange. It's really hard to guess the colors on the landlock. It really does need some, brand new model, brand spanking new model, all that stuff, so we will see how it goes. And Godwheat in the chat saying, number 1 SCOSY versus number 2 SCOSY. I wonder who he could possibly be meaning by number 1. Who could that be? Doglived has been really grinding out the race for some time. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it, out of these 2 dueling it out. Because I really don't think they know what AVA looks like, but they're both going for double radix, so they both got some ideas. Doglived going to scout ahead. Triple radix for Godwheat. Okay, I see how it is. We might not have a lot of time to talk about the strategy or the sort of game plan here, so before we get too hectic, I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at that very important map veto. So, just so you guys know, Gilded Wall was, of course, Doglived's map pick. We've got Corrosion coming up second. And there's Monazite ban from Doglived and Tesseract ban from Godwheat. So, those were their first initial moves to ban those maps. Missionary coming out here initially, so no surprises there. The only thing unit you can make by default is the Missionary or the Cardinal. You need Tech Center, Tech Relay in order to do anything else. Now the Pilgrim went up the ramp for just a moment and then turned back around, so I guess he's just going to try to defend and see what he can do there. He's gone for the very slow, not pulling any extra workers to power build the Radixes. Godwheat, on the other hand, has power built them, so keep that in mind. The eco for Doglived will be better. The army for Godwheat will be much better. Starting to get some Vespian in him now. He wasn't before. Going back to our veto real quick, just so you know. It was Frozen Sylphid and Saberhand second round bans, with Impulsion and Quasar Quartet being picked. So our decider is Magnetron. That's going to be exciting if we get there. We haven't had too many 5-game series. I think it was just the Smarty AOT one. So A man can dream, particularly with regards to the new race. Missionary face checks, ends up falling away and regenerating a little bit of life. I hear the incoming police sirens. They know it's too epic to have a best of 5 between the Escozi, but they can't arrest me. Our game's for yours. Gauntlet coming up pretty quickly here for Doglived. It looks like he wants to, you know, sort of double down on this. But look at that. Godway does the same thing. Just a little bit later, but with power building. So a little bit quicker. Actually, I think at this ratio, we're probably looking at it just completing around the same time. I feel like overall, the way that I'm seeing the radixes appear, you know, like he's got the same output. He's just making a lot of missionaries. And look at that. Third worker power building the gauntlet now. Who's going to win? Oh, look at that. He's actually overtaking him. The power of team building. The power of teamwork. It's magical. One of the things that, in my opinion, you're going to get from playing AVA is if it's going to be a biotic opener, like eventually you're going to want to add in some functions just for, you know, just for a couple of things here, just for a couple of things, at least in my opinion. Now power building that landlock as well with 3 workers. Is Dogwood going to expand anytime soon? It doesn't look like it. He immediately goes into mass Vicar production now that his gauntlet is done. Some Vicars have been started over here. Actually only 1, huh? That's interesting. He's starting to filter him in afterwards, but fairly bog standard there. Man, I really want to see... Okay, the expansion is going to come in from Dogwood. I was going to say, I really want to see a nice long macro game between the 2 players playing Escozi. That, imagine. Just imagine. Absolutely outrageous. Also, I was thinking a little bit about how we have these little catchphrases, like the Zerg have refrains where they say stuff like "it is known" or "this is known," "this is right," that kind of thing. And people have been using that in the community for some time. But the Escozi have the "our X for yours," you know, like "our thing for yours," and people have been using that as well. So I don't know, man. It feels very good as an author, if you will, as a from an authorial POV. It feels very epic to have people just start using the same stuff. Like I'm not writing it so that people kind of, you know, get it mimetically or whatever. Doggles actually comes down the ramp, so the Vicar count is definitely favoring our Dark Sapphire Escozi player, and the Missionary count might be favoring him a little bit as well. You can see Godway trying to go for that big clump of Vicars down in the bottom with that splash damage, but it doesn't really end up working out for him. In small numbers, Missionaries overwhelm Vicars because of the fact that they don't outdamage the heal that is intrinsic to the unit, thanks to its impact dissipation passive, which also gives it a speed boost. This is where 1 Rove would be so epic, because Dogwood could just give chase with it or whatever, but... Or a Proselyte, you know, Proselyte has the same ability. That's probably going to be an easier thing to filter in. You can see the power building attempted over here for the grandstands. He ends up making a couple of them to be put down. Pretty good DPS overall, and yeah, he's actually been... He's used the rematerialize ability on the Vicars a few times to try to heal them, which is a pretty cute move. Try to keep them up to some speed there. Cypher was put down some time ago. It's just about ready to finish, and Doglived has every interest in going for tier 2, it looks like. Xylode! Straight to Xylode. Okay, I wasn't sure what he was going to go for. Chantry over here is going to provide some nice healing radius there. I kind of feel like the... I kind of feel like the Xylode is a fun one. I don't actually know what he wants out of that. Is it like Fontus? I mean, he's going to need extra tech for it, of course, but... Now, third base for Godwheat. You're speaking my language, good sir. Doing some hardcore gaming out here. Getting the macro going. Mimic coming out for Doglived as well. There's a short form detector. You don't really need it, the detection versus Escozi in particular. Oh, wow. Godwait's going to be thinking about taking another base. Very nice. One thing I definitely plan on is having a hijacker that is permacloaked and doesn't reveal itself when, like maybe reveals itself initially when hijacking, right? Sort of like how Kabbalists and stuff reveal themselves when attacked. That's going to be super cool. He comes up here to scout and doesn't see a landlock, and so he doesn't do anything. It's pretty funny. Godwit is going to go for the expanse. Agonists are on the way for Doglift as he puts down another Xylot. Got his Dyad out to build faster. Very nice. Man, I am very excited to see what happens here. Oh no, he's only mining with one guy on the arch. He never restacked it after he built the structures. Well, he doesn't seem to have a problem with having an extra amount of resources, to be fair. Grandstand for the back door makes sense. This is a map that is a port of Golden Wall from Starcraft 2, done by Jujic. Shout out to Jujic. Or is it supposed to be like a JuGK, but I've just called him Jujic for the longest time, and now that's his name. We had a couple players who, a couple users who had that. Now, this is a little bit of a deadly situation because this base has got to be canceled, right? There's not really any way to finish that out. And that means that we are going to need to see it. Oh, it's not going to be canceled. It's just full dies. But you can see, I like this from Godwit. He's making the decision to hold at his defenses, push out with the bulk of his army, knowing that his opponent does not have the army to deal with his whole army. Look at the Vicar count. This army is mostly Vicars. That is so wild. One of them ends up getting a scout off over here, but I think Dogliv knows, oh shit, I'm going to need some help. Now, the Agonist isn't enough by itself to really make this happen. Yeah, there's some Vicars coming in from the top rope, but this looks like it's a pretty good move here for Godwit. He's not following the main army on the other side, but he said this isn't going to kill Dogliv outright, but if he comes up here and cancels out this base, destroys it or whatever, maybe bleeds the army on the high ground with a cliff advantage, I can see him getting a lot of value from this move out. High value moves for sure. Let's see what he ends up deciding to do. Some of his units are dealing with the landlock. He needs to pick at the target and stick to it, and I love the splash damage on that ramp. Just absolutely flattens Dogliv's army. More coming in. It's all Vicars, like 15 Vicars moving across the map to help out as well, and that is a brutal sandwich. Now, this could really turn into the kill threat because Dogliv decided to go up the ramp when really he needed to just cancel out the base and concede the base there, keep his army later. Agonist doing its best to supply a little bit of DPS, but, well, actually, you know, this is the same inverse rule that happened with Godwit's success up on the high ground. He's only barely breaking through. We got more units popping out. 7 Vicars at a pop. Oh, dear. No, all of them are stacked up. The Booming Blast almost killed all of them. A lot of workers dead. You know what I would have liked to have seen instead of what he ended up doing? Because the Vicars are the heavy hitters. He has no melee units. Dogliv could have really used some Dorinan if he had managed to get all the way up to, like, Bestiary Proscenium. That would have been probably a good move here. But unfortunately, it does look like his production is going to be targeted next, and the production does not have a lot of HP. So, you know, unlike, you know, 1100 or 1300 or whatever the Stockade health and Fulcrum health are, like, it's only 900, and with pretty abysmal armor. This looks like it's a little bit too much. Dogliv will not be able to sustain this, and Godwit getting the little bye across Shopkeeper Dog due to the fact that our Terran favorite for the tournament could not participate makes good on it in game 1. That is an Ascozi victory. I bet you didn't think I was going to say that today. Pretty good stuff from good old Godwit. I'm liking the fact that he managed to out-vicar the Dogliv. Is he actually the best Ascozi in the server? Is that real? Like, listen, he's got the win. He's got the win. That's what matters. It's so cool that we have Ascozi versus Ascozi. I can't underscore how epic. I can't overstate how epic it is that we're casting a mirror match tournament game between these people. That's pretty epic. Cold Canadian noob. Yeah, I agree with that one. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for game 2. Godweed in the top left, fresh off his victory, is going for a fairly quick Radix here. Doglived in the bottom right, fresh off his loss on Gilded Wall. We're on Corrosion, and it looks like Godweed is going to have his own map pick here, but we'll see if that makes a humongous difference. I think once the meta gets a little bit more settled and players have a, the things are a little bit more developed in that respect, and, a new race is always going to upset the meta anyway, but players always end up, finding different strategies and such. I think, 2 years from now in professional Cosmonarchy play, which is wild to say, we will end up putting a little bit more stock in, oh, you took the enemy's map pick. That's a real big deal. If anybody doesn't know, I also cast Counter-Strike, and the map veto there is a really big deal. Obviously, it's a team game. But you end up in a situation where if you win the enemy's map pick, that's a statement at top-level Counter-Strike. When the level is lower and the match integrity is perhaps a little compromised, you'll often end up seeing, most of the time, players just saying, oh yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. Anybody can beat anybody on any map. And so the level of skill and mastery of the maps themselves, of course, not that being said, the maps also just change a lot anyway. But the level of mastery over the maps, I think, is something that we're going to see over time be something that develops. It's not going to just be overnight either, but there will be some series, and there have been some series already where I'm thinking, okay, people are really putting thought into the map vetoes, and it really does matter if, I had a strategy planned for, this map, and, map 1 that I pick, and then my opponent beats me on that. That represents a bigger loss than if I lost on his map pick. So just as an example of a couple of things to keep in mind about those vetoes. Doglived going to go for a much faster expansion off of the back of his 2 Radix here, feeling fairly defensible. But it is a 3 Radix open for Godweed once again, and a lot of missionaries are coming out. We saw them get largely outmoded by the time the Mass Vicars were in play, and I feel like, one of the things we didn't see, any sort of run-by, despite the fact that Gilded Wall has a lot of run-by potential, whereas Corrosion not as much, at least so far as we've seen. There's definitely some room for if you wanted to take these little outposts here in the top right and the bottom left. These are things that you could do. Also, I forgot to color guess. So I believe this is Alice Blue, but it was Arrow for Godweed. And Doglived is, of course, Dark Sapphire. It's not really a color guess. I already knew. So I'm guaranteed 50%. We'll see if I can keep guessing Godweed correctly like map 1, not like map 2. I wasn't tactically waiting for more player color either. I was meaning to color guess at some point, but I had a really complex point to make about map rules, so I didn't. Anyhow, landlock is nearly complete. Gauntlet on both sides. Doglived going for his 3rd Radix. So, this makes a lot of sense. We are going to see more military power here for Sir Godweed, but so far, it looks like we are waiting just a little bit for him to push across the map. And to an extent, I kind of understand. Missionaries can focus each other down, but it requires a lot of precision. And you really don't want to just A-click and let them auto-target different things or whatever. It won't end very uniformly. Doglived is going to be going for a function, so we'll see maybe a rove or 2. One thing that I do think he could have gotten a lot of mileage out of is including a proselyte or 2 to speed boost his whole army. If you don't go function, you can't do it with roves. And proselytes do come out of the landlock, which does obviously mean that you're not building pilgrims for the time that you're building a proselyte. But I really feel like there's something there. There's something there, just adding 1, or if you have an expansion as well, spending 1 worker rotation to make a proselyte from both landlocks. I think that could so catapult your army across the map in terms of movement speed and stuff. So pretty big little power build here. Little big planet? No. Wasn't that made of yarn? I was going to say maybe that could be like a new race or something, but if they're made of string, I can't really do that. Anyway, listen, I find inspiration in many different locations. The Gauntlet is complete for both players. Vicars are coming out for Godweed. I'm sure we're going to see something of this sort come out here from the Radixes. The function seems like it's probably going to be Intendants, but I think he needs a little bit more crowd control. Intendants are okay at crowd control, so don't get me wrong. But he is going to need something that can deal with all of the missionaries initially, kind of reset the incoming attack. There's going to be an object early on, which I actually do prefer. I think the object here, I was just thinking that it'd be really nice to have one of those, purely because you make it so that the missionaries and the vicars have to spend at least a few rotations not doing damage to the rest of your army, due to the, how wide the object's defense works. Douglas making a beeline for the high ground, and Godwheat conceding it. Now, all of the armies are clumped up together, so Vickers are going to have an outsized impact. You can see there the... Whoa. That was probably a mistake, but I could have seen it be a really epic tactical move if he knew which unit had Booming Blast on it and decided to kill it before it could do so much damage. Only trouble is if you have the timer on Booming Blast and then you die, then you still release the damage. I'm pretty sure it was just a misclick. Dogle's going to be diving forward here, another function behind him. Object rocks up to start absorbing some of the incoming damage, but it's already been a broken formation, and the Vickers start to... when the Vicar attacks something, not only does it do a released damage that's AoE, but it also slows their movement speed a little bit. And so that's ends up being pretty significant. Look at that. Frontlining Vicar. I mean, at least it did some of the friendly fire back to him, sort of Cyclops style. But it looks like this is going to be where Godwheat holds the incoming attack, just on that high ground. Worker count's massively favoring Doglived right now. I don't know if there was a lot of worker cuts or what. Feels like Godwheat's macro slipped. He has arches coming for extra Vespine income. He doesn't really have much tech development. He's just going mass Vicar Man. That's what he is. Not the Wicker Man, the Vicar Man, which is sort of like what you imagine maybe a Polish or German person would say instead of Wicker Man when they were describing it, just because they don't really have W. Well, they do, but it's like a L with a line through it. Anyway, the object is going to finally go down, but look at how much it absorbed in terms of damage. What a huge force multiplier that ended up being. Shielding so much on the income because there was no armor pen with this army, so you end up mostly dealing like massively reduced damage, especially once it deploys. The grandstand is nowhere near in sight. Doglived seems like he's cracked a code for this antibiotic play, anti-radix play. I don't think all the mass Vickers in the world, all the Vickermans in the world, German, Polish, or what, are going to help Godwheat here. He's dropped down. His natural is spoken for, and GG has to be called as another object arrives to further shield his opponent from doing any damage. Whew. Very nice game. Doglived answers back immediately, which means we are going to go to Impulsion, tied up. I've been shooting my own units to heal them lately, but that was a misclick. Yeah, I probably shouldn't allow your own damage to do it. It kind of violates other rules that you would expect, like you can't shoot your Sim to split it, you can't shoot your Zoryus to get a really row core, that kind of thing. What up, Shamble? Scozy's above the law. I'm above the law in the Discord server, if you guys noticed. Deputy Dad is the law, and I'm above him. Literally. Just, like, not, you know, I still operate by certain rules. But, you know, just saying. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Game 3. Doglived is the Dark Sapphire, Scozy in the top left, and Godwheat is down here in the bottom right as the Alice Blue. Oh, Electric Blue. One of these days, I'll guess Alice Blue correctly. He's sending a Pilgrim far afield. Is he just going to make a... No. Oh, no. He's proxying, isn't he? Godwheat is going to be doing something a little bit cheeky. Yeah, he's definitely proxying. I somehow missed these two that were sent out even earlier. So this is going to be a cheeky game. This is going to be a pretty wild one. Radix on location, of course, for Doglived. Nothing fancy schmancy about that. We are on Impulsion, a bitty-bee map. Last time was Corrosion, a bitty-bee map. So we will have to see how the triple power build Radix at the proxy location ends up doing. Does he fix? Does he filter in a proselyte? No, it's just going to be more pilgrims, and he's sending another one across the map. You can see him actually building 2 Radixes here. This is very committed. My only concern really is that because of the travel time and because he's not power building all on one, the Radixes are going to come online pretty close to each other, and where's the advantage? You know what I mean? It's going to have to come down to micro. Let's see. And yes, that's a good point as well in chat. You can't make a proselyte until the Radix is done. Typically, I don't see this kind of action. Oh, of course, Doglived is going to scout it. Well, his missionary's almost done, so he can almost immediately send it across. And Doglived must be smiling about it. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to throw down a grandstand, which is a good choice here, in my opinion. This Pilgrim could have been building the Radix. Instead, he's going to build a grandstand. Okay. Godweed's economy is so bad right now. We're going to have to see what happens, because the third Radix has already started, and we are going to get those missionaries coming up. So, a little bit of a dance initially. You don't have to worry too much about the initial damage dealt there. But what does he do now? I mean, he's got 4 Pilgrims, then... Is he trying to do the hit-em-up move where he just, like, tower creeps? The problem is he's not building much behind it, you know what I mean? And I think he might be thinking about using the Pilgrims as the front line, but the Grandstand's going to foil his plans. A Proselyte has been made as well. Not using the active just yet, but one missionary goes down, another one very low. It looks like a Pilgrim also hit the deck. Well, lads, this is not looking too good, but maybe we'll find out what he wants to do in this situation. Triple building the grandstand and adding more missionaries. He's got 10 workers compared to the 15 mining for Doglived. And triple Radix production. I mean, maybe the containment can still do something, to be fair. You know what I mean? Like, that is a possibility. Especially if he ends up getting another grandstand up at some point. I don't know about that one. You can see him trying to focus down the Pilgrim there. That was pretty smart clicking. Now, the grandstand doesn't do crowd control damage. It just does anti-armor, so it might end up being somewhat helpful. Proselyte can jump to heal all these guys as well, but we don't see it being leveraged right this moment. I mean, Doglived probably doesn't need to worry about that. His gauntlet is coming. Oh, dear. Oh, there's the jump. He jumps right in, and he's going to see if he can break down the grandstand. I think in this situation, you don't target the grandstand. Doglived is kind of playing into Godweed's hands here, because by targeting the grandstand, he ended up, you know, wasting a lot of his DPS, because a lot of his DPS had no armor pen. The grandstand itself is a 3 armor structure with 300 health, but the enemy bio units, those are much easier to kill with the bio army. I like the micro, you know, stutter stepping backwards, and any of this damage is permanent, so there is that to consider as well. But it is looking a little bit dire here for Godweed. I don't know how he's going to navigate this situation and get out of here. Yeah, now it looks like Doglived's actually figured out what I was just talking about as he ends up focusing down the combat units. And, you know, he's trading down. He's obviously losing some of his missionaries, but this is all of the production, right? And so with the gauntlet coming up, I'm kind of surprised there was no Cosmoscope just to, you know, send a drop out to the other side and kill him that way. But he is going to break out. He is going to defeat the grandstand. And then, you know, the couple Pilgrims that were over here went all the way back. Cosmoscope is coming up for Godweed instead. 1 HP, by the way. Did 600 plus damage before going down. And it does look like this will be the slow demise of Godweed's outpost. And what will he do after that? Because this is all of his military production. Obviously, he's adding more behind the scenes. Radix number 4, Vickers coming out. Oh, man, that's dire. That is dire. He's gonna have to defend it. Like he has to actively protect it. He does have another grandstand to fall back to. So he's just got to take this time. You know, to an extent, Doglived can't really just run by and go attack the enemy base, because then all these missionaries can come in and attack. But at the same time, he also could. He's like just sending a few out, you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, I'll just send a few out and see what you got. Because if there's no defense over here, which right now there aren't any military, these missionaries can cause a havoc. That's great moves by Doglived. Now, grandstand is coming up somewhere else. Is it? Okay, it's further up by the ramp. I saw the Pilgrim over here waiting to expand, but he feels like he can't do that. And I agree. 3 Radix in production here for Doglived, and he's just scaling up his Vickers. That's all he's doing right now. Vicar Missionary. Really all he needs to do. Looks like the grandstand will actually finish up. Missed opportunity slightly for Doglived. He could have just run by. Fun fact, the grandstand deals exactly as much damage as you regenerate when you take damage from impact dissipation. So if you only take 1 hit, you will not have any problems. First hit's free. Vickers coming out in pretty good numbers here, 7 of them. This does feel like it has to be the end for this defensive push. You can see the missionaries diving forward and evaporating before our very eyes. So what do we get out of this, right? He's got his 2 Radix down here. His gauntlet is coming up. He wants tirades, I think. He could have had the gauntlet at any time after the Radix was completed, but he decided not to. And we will see Doglev finish this unit up. Finally breaking out of his sort of contain. Emissary coming for Godwheat. If he goes for a drop or something, that could be pretty good. And we got Missionary Vicar out on the other side of it. The gauntlet is almost complete. I guess if he puts down, you know, the second grandstand is one thing. Maybe he can get some Vicars himself. And he definitely needs a, you know, a tirade or two. Still a pretty ref hash. I don't know if that's a comment on what happened or if it's a request. Yeah, okay. Apparently it was a real thing. That would have been really funny if he was like, please. All right, he scoots up the missionaries. He's got his triple grandstand. He wants to see if he can just kind of... This is a risk you kind of have to take here, right? This is a risk that you kind of have to take because if your opponent walks in and kills you, I mean, he can, and you're dead. But if he thinks, oh, his army is there plus the defense, it opens up a window for you to do this emissary drop. My main concern is he going to have anything that will actually defend when the army, you know, pulls the trigger as the missionary drop occurs? Also, there's anti-drop here anyway, so it's a little bit academic. But it is a risk you have to take. It is a thing you have to do. Response time is pretty quick there, and only one worker, no, 2 workers going down. The missionary needs to hightail it out of there. Does have 3 of the missionaries in it. The emissary, rather, has to hightail it out of there. Maybe I'll kill a couple more workers in the process, but this is more or less, you know, taken care of. You know, it was just a tiny little drop. Almost caught up in workers, right? But not in terms of economic potential. And still a very big deficit that he's got to fight back out of. Oh, no. All right, our first tirade has arrived. Couple radixes. Scaling the production of Vicars. Godwheat seemingly thinking that's his main ticket out of here. He also has drop tech, so he absolutely can go for a, you know, he can go for, like, dropping a pilgrim somewhere and building a base elsewhere if he wants to. Oh, no. Oh, what a disaster. We caught it on stream and everything. Tirade number 2 is moving out. Looks like maybe it was spotted, the one up here. He's going to try to come out at the same time as he ends inside the base. He has managed to put down a grandstand on the low ground. He's doing pretty well there. And look at this tirade kind of drawing attention, but the rally point is also, protecting the... the rally point's also protecting the south flank. So this does feel really hard for the tirades to get in and do anything. He's still going to go for it. Takes a while for them to kill individual pilgrims. Only get a few shots off there. Yeah, unfortunately not able to get as much as he wanted. Now, if he had like 10 of them, it would be different. Once again, charging forward with his Vicars, hoping to get some good damage dealt to the Escosi on the front line, and he gets a few of those units dead. No Chantry to kind of like dive back under and heal, though. That's one of the problems that I'm seeing. You know what Godwheat needs? There's no way he can get it, is a Fontus. That would be so good here. Just start healing all of those allies as it takes damage. Pulling the enemies into the Vicar Splash, you know? Good luck. Good luck getting to that one, Godwheat. Radix is coming up. I'm surprised this game is still going, to be fair, but it looks like it might be coming to an end as the tirades do sync up with the rest of the army, but they will be felled relatively easily. I guess that one up top is probably going to cause some trouble, but that was all the ground army going. There's a lot of defenses, but nothing else really here. And it looks like Doglev is still going to be patient about it, grabbing his Cypher. They've actually evened out on production, but the 20-worker lead, Godwheat can't break out. He knows what's happening here and says GG, saves some energy for later in the series. And the favorite has begun to stack up the wins. Series point for Doglev. will we go longer? Does Godweed have another fight left in him? I can fully believe that worked, Shambler. You gotta abuse the attention that your homies have, you know what I mean? Players can't be everywhere at once and all that. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We got 20 minutes before the slated start time of the next match. I might be running a little bit late to that. I'll let them know. What do you mean by mineral sounds? They already have their own mining sound. It sounds like a digging. You'll hear it in a second.
I am a hero!
Game 4 between Doglived and Godwheat. And there was a time when I was talking about this series and I said Dogwheat and Godlived or something like that. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a tongue twister of a matchup. Godwheat is in the top left, and he appears to be beige. Beige Ascozi. Doglived is, of course, the Dark Sapphire Ascozi in the bottom right. We are on Quasar Quartet for map 4. As a reminder, Magnetron will be map 5 if we require it. But that would require Doglived to drop this very match. Going to be scouting horizontally at first to the bottom left, so we'll see how that goes. One of the things that I think is a pretty big deal here over the course of the series that I've noticed is neither player has exactly blown me away with unit control, per se. So I do wonder what the game plan is there, and where the development is going to be there. I'm also seeing something that's a little bit cheeky from Godweed. He's mined over 100 Vespine. What's he going to do with that, you know? Power building the Radix at the end of its lifespan there, and does he just go for a gauntlet straight away? He does. Now, I don't really think a Vicar Rush is all that useful, but I could see a world where you go like Radix Gauntlet Cosmoscope and you do a Vicar drop. I just don't think you have anything to defend a ground attack. And Doglived has found his opponent, and we'll see the gauntlet come out very quickly. Oh no, the missionary's getting body blocked by the Pilgrim. Unbelievable. Alright, there you go. He's going to be able to get him. Pilgrim will scout top right, and it looks like the missionary will just scout everything else. Oh, thank you. Prime sub from Godwheat. He's watching. He's happy that I'm showing his victory. It might be his only victory so far, but I did show a victory of him. Picking that first game. You know, how often have we seen that, actually? First game of a series won by the underdog, and then they proceed to just get owned. Well, we'll see if Doglived can keep that story going in the same way, or if Godwheat will be our narrative breaker. Cannoli and Kasuga both did that, apparently, as an example. I really feel like it kind of reminds me of the show match as well. Mixu playing Ascozi versus Gerald, and Gerald being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he lost his first few games versus the Ascozi. And then he started making armored units, and he was fine, right? This is before like the Mimic and the Scepter granted armor pen. And it kind of reminds me of that in a way. It's like, you know, neither player really knows. Like Kasuga didn't really know what was going on there, and he just didn't know to make armored units and to try to force the Ascozi to make a more complex comp, stuff like that. So far, the tournament has definitely caught some people by surprise. Godweed catching Hanmano, Doglived catching Kasuga, but they can't really catch each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they don't know how the race works. They might not know how the race works in a mirror matchup because it's probably a fairly infrequent thing, but we'll see. We'll see. Expansion's finishing up at pretty much the same time. Nice little concave around the ramp over here. Nice bit of high ground for Doglived. He's actually basically done the same build as before. Well, his third radix is late, but his fourth radix is early, so we'll call it even. Where he went 2 radix, landlock gauntlet, and then added the other radixes after. This is cross spawn, so he can be pretty safe against any move out there. Plus he has advanced warning, at least if they take the shortest path. And players haven't really gotten to the point where they're not taking the shortest path, if you feel me. Grandstand at the natural, so he is going to be playing a little bit more defensively. He's going to poke in and see what's going on. Obviously, Vicars are here and have been for some time. Fairly even worker count for the Ascozi players. And all the other races are at 0 workers. Noobs. One of the things that I do eagerly await is, like, it's going to be some time before we get to this point, obviously. I'm not blind to that. Also, BDB tile. But I really am looking forward to the day when we have all those extra races in the game and people are kind of used to them. And so, like, I don't know, a year and a half from now, we've gotten, like, the Blood Summon very well developed, and the Kogri are like the newest kids on the block or something like that. And people are getting really into, you know, they know all the meta stuff and they figured it out. And I get to, like, seriously talk about how, man, this player did this wacky strat. There's no way that would work. Like, you can't make that Blood Summon unit and think it's going to work versus this Kogri comp. Come on, man. Is it your first time playing against Kogri? I don't know. I just think that stuff like that is really cool. We're already seeing the beginning of that, the initial seeds of that with the Ascozi, with people figuring them out. So, looking quite forward to that. Radix number 5 on the way for Doglived, and we will have a little bit of an anti-drop defense for him. However, Godweed is not opting for the Cosmoscope this time around. Alexander says, hello, I am eating in a car and watching. Welcome to the stream, buddy. And welcome to your car as well. Godweed massing up at the doorstep. How does he break into here? The Grandstand's definitely going to be a nice little heavy tower, little anchor point for this whole defense. It does feel like the splash damage was starting to pay out some dividends, but the Vicars on the other side certainly did their own thing. Now, this sort of soft containment could make a lot of sense. We got a Chantry coming up here below the landlock to try to heal. Its radius is pretty wide, so healing out of combat, very good. One thing I was thinking about the Chantry is that maybe it would have a version of the Mimic passive where it consumes the fallen corpses for healing. So it can do both, like, an out-of-combat heal and an in-combat heal. Although that would also give it armor pen if I did that. So, I gotta think about that. But it's a cool idea. Anyway, functions are on the way. That is going to provide the objects again for Doglived, which we saw be really successful on Corrosion. It was like the most, probably the most convincing win out of all of the matches so far. Landlock coming up for base number 3. We commented on that earlier. You know, with a containment here for Godweed, allowing him to get up to that level. Most of his army is much, healed up much more, but you can't really break out of this position, and you certainly don't want to try. Look at all that splash damage. Oh dear, Godweed. You are being served up a silver platter that has Dogliv's whole army on it. At the same time, it almost broke through, but reinforcements are not going to come in. And why did he do that before his functions were done, so he could make the necessary units? Now he's making a round of Cardinals, but his Vicars are just getting owned. Oh, his Vicars are getting owned. That clump versus that concave was so brutal. Definitely not where you want to be. Dogliv's still trying his best to push out. Cardinals are going to have a bit of a hard time by themselves. If you can, like, speed boost them or something versus the Vicars, then you can neutralize the slow. Grandstand at the 3 o'clock position, and he's got another Pilgrim at 6 that he's probably going to do the same thing with, watching the bottom left main and Nat, with a single Vicar patrolling is a good move as well. Yeah, there it is. There's the Grandstand. Very comprehensive game here for Godweed, and Doglived choosing to attack before his objects were out is a hard one to end up dealing with. Now, the objects to absorb the incoming attack from the Cardinal, this is definitely going to allow him to break out. Make no bones about it. Those objects paid for themselves. More Vicars coming in, though, and he's not splitting these ones coming out of the choke point, so that was very dangerous. Does look like he's still going to shove Godwheat back as a moment of reprieve, and a couple of roves are coming out as well. Function, producing object rove, and then Radix producing Vicar, Cardinal. It's an interesting set of composition. I think it can work pretty nicely, but you do need to give some deference there. Yeah, I guess the roves are probably for that speed boost. Get your army across the map a little bit faster. It's neat that they end up turning into a cute little support unit partway through. Now he's going to see, okay, you've built a tower there. I'm going to go to 6 o'clock, but Godwheat's crafty and has built a tower there as well. One Pilgrim will be going to the bottom left. Oh, Dogliv is opting into going to every single area on the map that Godwheat has control of, and it's brutal. He hasn't gone to 6 yet. That's the only spot that he hasn't gone to on the domain of the wheat, the farmland, the crops, the fields. And it's triple proscenium as the development here for the Wheat of God, having secured Tier 2 access. Objects are going to try to get up the ramp. We got a couple more here. Vicar count on the high ground is still pretty legit, and he hasn't been able to focus it down. The roves are not speeding anything up to try to negate that slow. Still, it ends up being a fairly cost-efficient fight for Doglived, all things considered. And now we're going to need to see a little bit of a defense from Godwheat. Has he tried to be a little bit too fancy with it? His army, standing army, isn't great, but there are no more objects to defend, and the roves are not using their active ability. A round of Cardinals suddenly for Godwheat, but most of his Vicars are gone. Cardinals still pose a big threat because they will do some damage, and the splash damage from the Booming Blast will start to do a number on the Vicar. He's going to go after this third base, but a fourth is already being set up at 9 o'clock. Aphorists are on the way for Godwheat. He knows that splash damage is going to be a key detail. Grandstand's up here in the top right, but he ends up just grabbing all of the Pilgrims and evacuating. Doglived is going for one final push here. He is developing a third base himself. Vicars on the high ground are going to be pretty tough ask for him to get by. They need to focus down the enemy Vicars, though. Godwheat, he's got his Aphorists out. Those splash damage is safe, so yeah, you're not going to be damaging your own Cardinals or anything, and that's going to initially turn Doglived back. Aphorists are very, very good specifically at dealing with low armor units, and the Vicar only has one effective armor versus them. You can see him still trying to do some heckling. I don't actually know where Godwheat's Pilgrims went. Did they end up dying? Or did they evacuate down here? It looks like some of them were bruised over there. I'm going to assume that they ended up evacuating down there. Still a lot of map control for the Wheat of God. Reinforcements do come in. And it looks like he's sort of piecing this together, but the Remax coming out of the units on the ramp and such, I think they're going to be a little bit too much. Now, one thing that is pretty good... He attacked his own Aphorist. One thing that is pretty good is if you can isolate individual units, if there's nothing for the Aphorists to splash, their combat effectiveness goes way down. But it doesn't look like it's mattering too much just yet. Dude, Vicars as a pseudo frontline for the Aphorist is kind of wild. He's getting a couple of units coming up there, but they're not attack moving. Doglived is trying to get into a better fighting position, it looks like. As the dust settles on the battlefield, Doglived has 82 workers. Dude, this is a wild sequence of events. He's really swung the game into his favor in a big way. Another Proscenium is coming. 3 Xylodes as well. Big development here for Godwheat. All of his, of course, his mech units that are there are obviously going to have to pass through his entire base. We'll see how well that ends up going for him. This could be this could be where he gets the Fontis. Dude, he's getting sandwiched on the ramp of his his fourth base that is basically his third now. Roves are proving okay versus the Aphorists insofar as they don't die immediately. Oh no, they were hooked onto a different unit, or they were, I don't know. Yeah, they were trying to attack the Rove, I guess. Starting to look pretty dire here for Godwheat. He is going to go for the Bestiary, though. And the Xylode The Xyload is coming. Doglith has such a humongous economic advantage that the fact that he's not at tier 2 might not matter. Scozy tier 2 isn't a humongous power spike by itself. You obviously want to have some other units from tier 1 that can still help out, like the Cardinals are helping out the Aphorists right now, for example. Vickers we saw as like a pseudo front line as well, making it pretty hard to get in any closer. Maybe if we had some functions here for objects, Godwit would be in a really good spot. But as of right now, it does look like he's being broken. GG, well played is called, and he will concede the match. Doglived has won after all. Guys, that was a very exciting series. Escozy versus Escozy, and it kept us guessing until the end. I thought maybe the tech development would have been really sick, but it does not end up that way after all. And Doglived cements himself as the best Escozy in the server, while also being the one to go in and face a Protoss for qualification to the Battlement stage. One more best of 5 is all he needs to play. We'll see you for that one. GG's. That was pretty hype. That was pretty hype. I especially love that Smarty sent me 5 games, as admins are, they ought to do. And so I thought for sure this was a 5-game set based on that, because not every admin did that. So shout out to Smarty for keeping me guessing as well. He called the replay Magnetron, but for the 5th game, but it's Gilded Wall all over again. I didn't even notice that they had the same file size, shall we say. So that was pretty cool. I dig that. All right. Our grand final is slated to start in a couple of minutes, so that means that I have to tell you guys what went down in the second semifinal. And I hate to do that as a spoil, but it's pretty good to have the, like, in my opinion, right? It's really good to have the final be streamed. So I had to admin this particular series, and I wasn't gonna admin it and then cast it and fake like, I wonder what happens, guys. So as a result of that, I ended up casting it during that time. And so that was Neblime versus Smarty Cakes for semifinal number 2. And Neblime took the first 2 games. Smarty took game 3. And then game 4 was... Games 2 and 4 were very close, and Neblime was able to make it happen. So I hope that you guys still watch the VOD when it comes out, because it was a very fun and entertaining PvP series. And I very much look forward to seeing your guys' reactions to it. And shout out to Smarty Cakes for doing what he did. It was not obvious that Neblime was going to take that, even though I had to obviously be like, dude, Neblime. Of course you go for Neblime, you know what I mean? So with all that in mind, with all that said, it is going to be a pretty fun time to be a Cosmonarch, because we're about to cast that final set. Yeah, of course, everybody telling me to buff Escozy. Escozy technically lost that series. Okay. Escozy 40 workers lost to Escozy 80 workers. Honestly, I really can't believe he kept trying to break out of his natural. Like, I feel like Doglived shouldn't have kept really slamming his head against that wall, but I guess he had a way to make it happen. So I can't really fault him, not yet anyway. I win as an Ascozi buff because weak, or I lose and Ascozi wins. I can't stop Ascozi, says Neblime. Buff Ascozi either way, yeah. Maybe I will. Maybe that's what I do. A good idea. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the grand final of Tribunal number 4. Neblime is getting ready to take on Doglived, and we're going to catch the action live. If you don't want to miss the live part, you're watching this as a VOD later, twitch.tv/Pronago, or just check out the YouTube channel when it goes live. You can hop into our Discord server. You'll get annoyingly pinged every time I go live. It's a great time. We are going to be seeing Ascozi versus Protoss. Doglived has made it through the Ascozi side of the bracket, considering he had to face off against Godwheat in a mirror match in the semifinal. And Smarty was felled by Neblime in his approach to that grand final. So we had some PvP action, mirrors on both sides. Now we know who is going to go where. Doglived and Neblime meeting in the grand finals. And I am very excited about it. They both defeated their underdog 3-1. And so they come in looking on a heater. Let's see who's going to go where, guys, because we have that map veto coming at you. Specifically, we can actually see that it has already begun, and so I guess I'll go ahead and pop it in for you guys. As we see, Gilded Wall and Corrosion have been selected. It was Tesseract and Monazite banned. I can't believe Doglived banned Monazite. Unbelievable. Frozen Sylphid and Macroglia are going to be the two vetoes after that. Macroglia is a pretty good map to ban versus Neblime, but Corrosion picked? That's a bit risky. Impulsion, Quasar Quartet, and then Saberhand if we need a 5th map. All right. That's a pretty exciting one. The fact that Gilded Wall got first picked, the fact that Doglived picked Corrosion against Neblime, a map that he's been really damn good on. I don't know. I mean, if Neblime has a good plan for map 1, he could get up to a 2-0 start very quickly here. Let's see what Doglived has cooking as I get ready to host that first lobby. I love that. That's what Smarty just said in chat is kind of like what Shambler said at the end of his series, where he said should have been Zerg, and then like he was prepping for AOT the whole time or something, and then Smarty bopped him. I typed hosted, and then they immediately joined. So that was really good. Let's get into it. It is time for some very exciting Cosmonarchy to be put on your screens. Neblime, the orange Protoss in the bottom right of Gilded Wall. Doglived, the dark Sapphire Ascozi. His favorite color, it would seem, at least for this race. And he's going to go for that Radix. So we will be seeing Biotic open, no function rush or anything. I'm interested in seeing how Doglived is going to go for this. I didn't mention it, but in that little intro, in that little beginning flavor, Neblime has not faced Ascozi in a ranked match, in a tournament match, as far as the Tribunal stage is concerned. I don't think, yeah, he didn't face them in any weekend wages either. Doglived has faced Protoss already. He defeated Kasuga 3-1 in a previous series. So the fact that Neblime is going up kind of cold on the matchup, probably hasn't had a ton of practice. Didn't even get many responses when he was asking how to defeat Ascozi in the clan chat that he's got over there. Not very many people said anything to him. We'll see how he wants to navigate the matchup. Here we see Doglived doing exactly what he did for Kasuga. Radix into function. He wants to do a little mix and match. And he's very well practiced with this build, so I do think he'll be in a stable position. Neblime is going to go for a Scribe Scout, moving mostly all the way across the map now, and he'll scout this, but will he know what to do about it? It kind of reminds me of those show matches with the pros, where they scout, like, 2-gate rogue gallery or something, and they're like, I don't know what that structure does. So, we'll see. Second function immediately as well. And one of the things you actually want to do versus Protoss, not that it matters in this situation too much, is you actually want to keep the Pilgrim inside the structure. This is a fleeting point. You know, if you're watching this, like, months later or something, this probably doesn't even happen anymore. We fixed it. Pilgrims are supposed to be on the outside of the structure when they're producing, but I haven't been able to figure that one out yet. Starcraft is just weird in terms of its code. But Nebulum can't exactly harass the worker on the inside of the function. The hitbox of the structure is a little bit too big, so a cute little way for Dogliv to avoid the incoming heckling. I know that some players cancel the construction and then start retask it so that the worker does go to the outside, and that's to avoid it getting stuck. However, it's been discovered that you can issue another build command to unstuck the worker, which is really funny. Another thing that we'll fix over time. So 2-gate lattice is going to be the play. I wonder if this is because he's, you know, going to go for like Vassal or something, force some anti-air out. Obviously, missionaries are okay. Actually, missionaries only attack ground. No, they attack ground anyway. I was going to say, for some reason, I recall missionary vicar on the vicar being the only one to attack the air unit, but that was probably because it was out of range. Anyway, roves are on the way, coming out here for you. Nothing too funky immediately. I'd love to see some objects, actually, because I think the Hierophant is obviously going to be an on-hit attacker, you know, applying that debuff, and the object will initially deal with it. Rove to boost the economy. That's what he's going for. He's speeding up the resource gathering rate, the movement speed. There it is. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Sweating. Macro mechanic added. Inject larva. Personally, I don't think that's a particularly great thing to have, but also it barely gives you any money, so it kind of, like, it technically matters, but it also kind of doesn't. And at the same time, Escozi are so cost inefficient head-to-head that they almost need something like this. Or at the very least, it doesn't stop them. It doesn't make them OP. It's like, what are you going to do with, like, one more missionary every 2 casts, you know? Vassal is going to be heckled. The Rove does shoot up, so Vassal cannot counter this sufficiently. Scout's the expansion coming, so does Nebulum want to attack? No, he's got a lot of money. He's going to throw down his Nexus, and he's going to develop his tech. I'm guessing versus Escozi. One of the things we saw Gerald do really nicely against Mixu in a show match recently was he went for, you know, gateway units into a Cantor. I also see that idols were made out of the lattice. Yeah, I think an Ardent would be really good here, and he's got enough Vespene for it, so that's exactly what Nebulum is going to be doing. Going for the Ardent. He's actually left room, I think, for a Crucible here if he wants to add that later on to speed the production rate of his structures. So compositionally, Nebulum seems to have the right idea. What is Dogliv going to be doing in this situation? You know, he casted it, what, 4 times? Got like 200 minerals max? Maybe less? I think less. Anyway, his Rove is down here on the ramp, and he is no longer pushing the buttons. It's too much. The object is on the way, and a gauntlet is halfway complete. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I feel like the way that we're seeing that composition developed, object would be really good in general versus on-hitters. Anybody with an on-hit debuff. Also, just really good to allow the Escozi army to approach where they otherwise can't. And the Roves are going to keep mobile. This is a very, very heavy Rove count, which is reasonable versus early armor. Big thing that we're going to see here is as these mineral fields do indeed get mined out, Nebulum might choose to be aggressive with that, or he might choose to just take a back base and be somewhat safe about it. And he is going to go for a Witness, but he might also go for an Acantor drop. We'll see. Little temple here, he could proxy structures if he wants to. It looks like he's just going to come in here, and he needs 3 returns in order to remove the mineral field. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, he's just going to pile on block initially, but this could also be used for building stuff, obviously. Yeah, so he needs to mine this 3 times in order to open it up. And he's going to be watching initially for what Dogliv is doing. Looks like the Scribe Scout on the top left is going to hang out here and re-scout at some other point. Nebulum's so good at keeping his scout in a place that people are not going to expect. And it is indeed going to be an Envoy Acantor with the Witness coming across. It looks like the Pilgrim is over here, and they'll see each other, you know? They'll be like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Is that just fake? Is that just, you know, a little thing? We'll find out. Dogliv has some idle workers at the natural, adding his Intendants. More Radixes to add more Vicars as well, which makes sense versus, like, Zealot-based compositions. I really feel like the Acantors are going to shut down any attempted push. Yeah, the grandstand does stop you from mining, so Nebulime is not going to be doing the trick. The trick is when you mine minerals, then you can come down here and mine gas, and then you can go back up and mine minerals. You have to do that 3 times, obviously, so it's a lot of APM, a lot of multitasking. And he's lost the window now. I mean, technically, he could send, like, 4 artisans there or something, but I wouldn't recommend it. Witness sees that the army is absent from the base. Nebulime going to be adjusting here as he puts down a Nexus in the back. And this makes a lot of sense if you're trying to just hold the ramp in the natural. You know, these bases over here are a lot harder to get out onto the map and hold. And the Acantor drop does end up going for the natural, but no workers slaughtered. Uh-oh. That is going to kill the Pilgrim. So that should force a cancel. Not canceled. Okay. Well, the army went all the way back there to try to do some heckling. Oh, he does catch it on the way out. Very nice. Wasn't expecting the whole army to be there, exactly. So no additional envoy has been made yet. Oh, never mind. I tell a lie. He did make another one. But that is, you know, he only has the one Acantor. He's going to have another one pretty soon. There might be a slim window here where Doglev can send his army to attack. He's got a pretty big army, it must be said. Macroing out quite a bit. Witness will spy base number 3 still going down. And the Acantor is going to be earmarked for that. Try to keep his opponent on the back foot. Cypher on the way. Tier 2 access and a couple more units as well. Oh, no! Well, the Acantor has been spotted inside that envoy for sure. I mean, he doesn't have detection, so he can't click on it and see what it is, but that's still pretty dire initially. A couple of zealots. I think this is going to be intended as some sort of run-by. Instead, it'll be caught by the army. He's going to actually hide most of them up here. I guess he's just trying to delay his opponent for as long as possible. You know, it does make sense. Argosy, the Crucible will empower those 3 structures there. And there it is. The Pilgrim has once again been interrupted in the middle of making a landlock. It's got a little bit too much health for one Acantor to deal with, though, so... Oh, no. Yeah, down he goes. Nebulime trying to get a little too fancy with it, it feels like. The Argosy is probably for Magister again, but I never know with Nebulime. He could go for a Didact or something. Adding a Bulwark to help hold against an incoming enemy attack. Xylode. I mean, we're building up. We're building up the pressure here. Nexus in the safe spot. You don't get access to Vespine, but it will be a nice little mineral spot for him. He's got a lot of minerals as it stands. Could definitely scale his gateways. So Magister is going to be coming up here. That's a little bit rough for those Acantor hits, though. Look at that. I think the objects will be going down pretty soon here. Don't pay no heed to the overlay. That's fine. The Acantors are definitely providing a lot of value, but it does feel like Doglev is going to break through unless Nebulime can pull some magic out of a hat. His last Acantor falls. Well, most of the Scozy units are pretty bruised after all of that. He might still be able to hold just barely. The Acantors did their job. The difference of one more object, the difference of one less Acantor would have swung that fight pretty massively. Doglev has his army reset. But he did enough damage to Nebulime's force that I don't think that an attack can really come across the map as of right now. You know, Nebulime is very, very good at recognizing when he needs to move out on the map and start taking extra bases or something, start setting up extra forces, maybe has an opening to attack. That is not the case over here right now, I don't think. Radix, Grandstand, just general development over here at the 3rd base. It has to be said, Nebulime's economy is ahead, so he might be able to animate himself towards a better position as far as that is concerned very quickly. Dude, I don't even know what you're going to do with this scribe on the other side. Just build a Nexus here too, man. Why not? Agonists on the way. Okay, that's the Xylode move here. Proscenium as well. Just one Proscenium. I guess he could go Thaumalog, but it's a pretty... It's not really a supportive unit, right? It's a bit more of a... You know, I make this unit to do a lot of damage. Like a Madcap-esque type unit in a way. Argosy number 2 on the way and almost complete. Argosy number 3, it's going to be Mass Magister, a page out of 3 Crow's book from way back when. And a lot of vision for Nebulime across the upper strip of the map. He should be apprised of this army, and 3 objects are with it. I'd love to see the Roves speeding everybody else up here. I know it's a lot of APM, but I think even just like 1 or 2 casts of it to get those objects moving, the Vicars and stuff, the stuff in the back line that takes so long to move. Magister count is pretty high, and when they attack a unit, they debuff them, allowing other units to attack them with extra weapon range. So that is going to be a point of contention, especially over like mineral walls and cliffs and like that and stuff. Of course, initially the objects are what are absorbing the on-hits. So definitely something that is working out in favor of Doglived for now. Mimics are on the way. He's got some units to defend over here, as well as that grandstand at the spot. And it does look like base number 5 for Neblime in the top right is likely to get canceled. Instead, he's actually going to make the jump. He's going to push. He is pushing directly. And the Acantors are once again going to farm this position at the ramp. The Zealots, the Golems, and the Scribes all trying to body block, but every Acantor has already been eliminated. The Rogue Galleries are going to start making Vagrants on the spot. This might still be a really critical attack point, as Neblime had all of his Acantors within striking distance of Dogliv's army as he forces himself up the ramp with the objects, only for another Acantor to arrive and be unceremoniously executed. The Magisters coming in from the west. There's a lot of them. They're kind of sandwiching the Ascozi army, but I don't know if it matters much at this point. The Agonists firing shot after shot. Doesn't matter if they're moving, doesn't matter if they're even facing their target. And all those Scribes, juicy Scribes, being exterminated by the Vicars in the process. Neblime still has a humongous worker lead. So in a way, there was no critical damage dealt here, but it did bring all of those Magisters back. Pylon at the bottom left will finally be removed from the equation and allow another base for Doglived as he starts to push across this bottom strip. We finally get to see it used in the grand final, no less. The Magisters come in to accept this attack. Objects are going to be brought down fairly shortly, but he is going to need to cycle those Magisters back. Does he have any ground army? No, he's just got more and more Magisters so far. Not really anything that he can do in this situation, as you can see. There's nothing that really shoots up. As for the name here, I got Neblime, so it could be me. I mean, it's gotta be it's gotta be me or it's gonna be me or not. The Agonist count here is looking pretty good for Doglived, but I don't think it's a great choice versus the Magisters specifically. And the Vagrant count, I mean, the biggest problem is Neblime can defend, but I don't think he can attack in. There might be an opportunity to break here. The pathfinding obviously working in his favor now as he catches a bunch of those units. And the army just has to move across the map here for Doglived. He is going to see if he can break in. A couple Kabbalists coming in to attack over here. There's no detection. The Witness is still there, though. Yeah, he's losing a lot of his infrastructure. I think Doglived is making a choice. He's going to move across the map with the army that he's got and see if he can break him. But the Magisters by themselves are going to be enough to deal with a lot of what we see here. We'll keep these Magisters selected while the rest of this Ascozi army is massing at the gates. Right now, they're not pulling the trigger on the attack. You see that object absorbing the pressure initially. Some Agonists are going to come in for a little bit of damage. You can see him sending all of the units back to defend now. He is canceling his moves to attack back. Neblime needs to cycle back. He is going to lose a lot of those Magisters in the process. His base in the top right is going to be attacked. I don't think Doglived can break the ramp. Yeah, that's going to be a dead Nexus for sure. And the Acantors are actually out on the map, so this changes the calculus a little bit. Should be able to reset that Nexus. Only a couple of Vicars on the other side. Not really helping us out here. Bit of a stalemate now. We'll see how this next fight resolves, and if it's actually a call, you know, that's one thing. So far, it does seem like they're still in sync. Oh, hey, look at that! Pilgrims or Scribes, somebody split this army up and did a thing. This army in the middle is going to be taken up. Magisters slowly but surely trying to break through what's here in the bottom. They're kind of working and also kind of dying. A lot of them are very low. Yeah, it looks like Doglived is jumping on that. The Acantor's in the middle of the map, though. That could be kind of bad. All right, I think we're going to check the POVs at this point. Oh, no. One Kabbalist immediately went in and died. That's funny. Let's see, if Neblim's not I don't think Neblim's reacting to the bottom left, so I think, yeah, we're probably out of sync with the players. Let's call for a... I'll wait for this Nexus to pop, and then I'll call for a pause. I'm just waiting for there to not be an active combat, which is hard on a map like this. Players are doing their thing so much. All right. Lads, we're going to check the POVs real quick. Oh. Well, there's a lot of Magisters on Neblim's side. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so Dogliv's resources are synced with me, and Neblim has out-of-sync resources. So it does look like when I have to squint to see it because it's the fucking pause UI, you know what I mean? Yeah, unfortunately that looks like a replay. That sucks because that was a really cool game. I have to agree with the chat, though. The Dogliv has a... it seems to have a perennial issue. That time, though, I don't know. It looked like it was... It looked like it was Neb. Because... and Neb also desyncs way more than anybody else, so let's be real here. Oh, wait. I have to do my intro again so that it's seamless, guys. Let's get into it. There you go. Neblim is in the bottom left. Our yellow Protoss. Doglived is our Dark Sapphire Ascozi. We did have to replay the first game here due to a technical error. However, we already saw some pretty epic stuff. I hope we see some more epic stuff. Just go again, guys. Just redo the same game. It will be a function first for Doglived. So, versus Kasuga, he'd like to go Radix function. And Neblim has not played against Ascozi yet, so we don't really know how he wants to play. But we know how Gerald played against Mixu. Gateway man into a Cantor. Lot of a Cantors. I think that's a good move. Doglived switching it up with the function into Radix instead of Radix into function. He might have done that one game against Kasuga. I'm finding it difficult to remember. But I think it means that it points towards faster roves, which could mean more harassment, right? I think Neblim will be pretty well insulated and go for the 2-gate here for extra military. Giving him a love tap there. By the way, this version of Gilded Wall is technically the updated one that has the different mineral counts over there. All that really matters, not that it really figured into the other games that were played on this map, but all that it really means is that you just have one less click to do when you're trying to break them out. Look at this guy. He's trying. He's trying to get a little fancy with it. First Legionnaire is going to... Yeah, he's going to spear him a little bit better. He's like, hey, my spear works better than your mining saber, dude. Get out of here. Defeated. Reveals that it was indeed a Legionnaire first, though. Function is now going to finish up. Rove coming, so that is exactly what we expected there. Rove Missionary, I mean, it could be an early timing, but I do feel like Protoss are just going to be better at dealing with this than some of the other races. If you think about it from the perspective of how Zerg has to deal with it, right? Like, if you arrive really fast because you power built the units or something, that's a pretty big boon in favor of the Ascozi player. they might not have units up, or they might not have the right kinds of units or something like that. You know, if they went Zeths and you went Rove Missionary or something, you can just kind of annihilate them with a little bit of micro. Obviously, it's not like a super one-sided fight if the Zerg player, you know, sets up like a burrow trap, or, you know, has like some sort of static defense or whatever, but it's definitely harder than, you know, if you had gone Quaz or something like that. Anyway, going up against the Protoss, they have durable frontline units that take a while for the Iskozi to clear through. They have sustain for those frontline units, and they have like a debuff mid-range unit that's going to go ahead and bop you. 4-gate from Nebline. He's going to go very aggressive. But it's also a 3-function build very quickly here. Doglived scaled up his Radix production later on in his games versus Protoss to add more Vicars. So that was a really good situation for him to play it out there that way. Nebline off to the side. And we see what I was talking about in, you know, some of Dogliv's games against Godwheat. I noticed that he would use the Roves to speed everything up. He also did that versus Kasuga. He's very adept at using that to like move small armies across the map, but just a little bit faster. That's one way that you can use the abilities for the Iskozi. Now, this is going to provoke Nebline down. I think his army is still pretty good versus this situation, especially when Dogliv is just charging up. Now, you can jump out with the Roves, but not with the Cardinals. It will go down, and those guys are kind of tanky, but they also provide you with some healing in the middle of combat. This looks like Doglived bit off a little bit more than he can chew. He's going to get another cast off on the little Rove ability. He's got Proselyte as well. Scribe has been seeing that there's no expansion this whole time, so Nebline should be feeling pretty confident in this situation. Everything at full HP now. Oh, random pylon there, you know, just to add to the chaos and confusion. You can see Doglived is going to try to focus down individual units, but he misses that Zealot with 9 HP, and Ecclesias gets it back to full immediately. Proselytes are out as well. Doglived has a lot of money. It feels like maybe the moment is overcoming him. He's scrambling a little bit, and he's just going to concede there. Calls GG, realizes that the 600-plus minerals that he had in the bank there was not enough. And that, my friends, is the game one of record. Not the game one we deserve, but the game one we got. Doglived has dropped it. We go to map 2, Corrosion, his map pick. Well, that was a little bit disappointing. I won't lie to you guys, but there's still plenty of potential for more epic coming up. So let's see what happens on Corrosion. This is a map I really think Nebline is just gonna... He's gonna put up a tough game. It's gonna be really hard for anybody else to counter what he does on this map. Kasuga says, okay, Zealot better. It is time for Game 2, Doglived, the Dark Sapphire Iskozi in the top left. His map pick of Corrosion, Nebline. Oh, owned. Devastated. Doglived, why would you do this? Oh, I see. Nebline saying it hashed because he got the bottom right spawn. I don't know what that means exactly. But now he's got the top left. All right, lads. We're back. Nebline is our Protoss. Our Platinum Blue Protoss in the top left. The Dark Sapphire Iskozi in the bottom right is Doglived. Opening up with Radix here on Corrosion. Now, Doglived picked this map. Nebline has owned on this map. That being said, his game versus Smarty Cakes in particular kind of reminds me of, you know, like Smarty had opportunities to kind of scout around and try to dismantle him here and there on the map. And if Nebline doesn't get up to his usual antics of controlling the right-hand sides, that can be kind of big. Man, that looks so close to like blocking the landlock, but it is actually valid. It's valid. It's just because the profile of the construction space is kind of wild there. Doglived had some spending troubles in his last game, did not get up to the radix count that he needed, was spamming up proselytes, so he didn't even have that many pilgrims, but he was still floating a lot of money. Hopefully he can dial himself in a little bit better now, and it looks like he's going to be going for triple radix. Now, I'm not really sure what the value of the radix down here in the low ground natural is. We're going to have to find out together, because there's a reason for it. 2-gate start for Neblime. He went 4-gate last game and was able to shoulder the incoming attacks pretty easily. In fact, it feels like if Doglived had gone for a more harassment-oriented move instead of just trying to go straight up the main ramp, he probably would have been in a better position. I don't know if that would have meant, a fast Cosmoscope or finding ways to, send units across through the back door or something like that. Maybe if he had kept his Pilgrim in the right spot, that could have been a good move. Something that I'm sure it's like really obvious that players could do it, but nobody's actually done it, at least in any games I've seen, is if they kept the Pilgrim like over here. This map doesn't really allow you to do it. Maybe over here, right? Like if you kept your Pilgrim here and your opponent didn't know that your Pilgrim was still in the base, and then you just jump to him with roves or indeed proselytes, as we have being constructed right now, that could be a really big deal, because then the proselytes could jump in on the Pilgrim, and then they could attack workers, and then the army has to go deal with that, and that lets the missionaries in. There's ways that you can go about attacking the enemy and without needing to go straight up the ramp, and I'm hoping that we get to see some of those ways be developed. Neblime is already starting to claim top right, hasn't actually started harvesting resources there yet. And an initial heckling of the proselyte missionary combo is enough for the Hierophant to start to get activated. It doesn't have a lot of armor, so it does feel like this is a pretty reasonable spot. Now, if the proselyte starts to put down the islet, and the islet micros the unit, that's just godlike, you know what I mean? No gas being harvested yet for Doglived, but he is going to go ahead and keep making his proselyte missionary combo. Looks like he really wants to try this early rush out, despite the fact that it's resulting in less workers for him. Needs to react really quickly here with the army, though, and he isn't so far. Losing 2 missionaries almost immediately. The proselyte could jump out, but doesn't. The zealots are taking so long to actually be dealt with, and he calls it right then and there. GG. Is Doglived out of ideas? Obviously, this was a different look for him in Game 2 than it was in Game 1. It was a different complexion to the army comp, but it's falling flat in the early game, and we're going to need to see more macro defensive play, I think, out of him, or at the very least get into some of that tech. Alrighty, lads. I wasn't expecting to be on Impulsion so quickly. This is flying by. And I did say that Neblime could get up to a 2-0 start, but I didn't think it would be like this. Don't bring akimbo pistols to a knife fight. Yeah, something like that. We're getting into Game 3 here in just a moment. And just like that, blink and you miss it, we're on to Game 3. Neblime, series point. I did say he could maybe get to a 2-0 start with his own map pick of Gilded Wall going his way and Corrosion, a map that he's very, very comfortable on. A hard one for Doglived to fight against, and he had some idea for the early game, but maybe it just didn't quite work. Maybe the micro wasn't quite there. Not entirely sure. Nonetheless, Neblime in the top left is our blue Protoss, and Doglived in the bottom right is our dark Sapphire Protoss, and we will see what these two have in store for each other this time around with a function open. We saw that just because Doglived was harvesting gas early. Scribe moving across the map, a gateway having been put down here. All I can think of is what could have been when we had such an amazing start to the series that unfortunately ended in a hash. But Doglived did look up very, very, competent in that situation. He had a lot of moves. He was getting all of the tech going. Then he decided to go for Rushtown, and I'm not sure why. I can kind of understand, stylistically or whatever, if you have to remake due to a tech error, then you just go straight for it, right? You're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to just rush him down. He's not going to expect it. And then he expects it, and then you lose. Okay. But he's not going to expect it a second time. And then he indeed is. So the third function is here, and it is behind the lines over here. So it's going to be hard for the scout to find it, if indeed that is going to be the case. And no more gas is being harvested. I have a feeling this is a rove rush. And, I mean, listen, if it works, you know, because, like, Doglived is thinking there's no way he expects me to rush 3 games in a row, maybe we will see something happen here in favor of the Escozi. Smarty said in the chat that he would have 3-0'd Doglived, and I don't know if that's the case. You know, he might have just been being a bit of a, you know, just trying to do some John's trash talk or something. Function number 2. Falls off the gas again. Wild. He must have mapped out how many roves he can make on one base production with just minerals, right? So, only need the gas for the structure itself. Good grief. There's going to be a lot of roves, guys. We know that for sure. Maybe it'll be enough. We don't see that many zealots come out either, so if it takes a while for Neblime to get up to his usual, zealot count, and it's not like Gilded Wall where he's going to have 4 gates, right? He only went the 3 gate. At some point, he'll make a Nexus, most likely. What Doglived could really do, though, is clear the scribe that's scouting out that he doesn't have an expansion yet. It's fine for him to not have the expansion by now, but he's been doing something with his economy. He's been doing something with his development. So he is going to need to do something to deny the scouting. So steady Pilgrim production, no proselytes just yet, and that's fine by me. Looks like he might be thinking about that expansion after all, with 8 roves now leaving the deck. No, he actually pulls that Pilgrim back. Whatever he had in mind for it, he decided to change it up, and proselytes are coming. It is a committed push. Now, there's a lot of Legionnaires here, and the Hierophants are also going to help out. But I think you're going to see the roves do a little bit better versus all of those guys. Now, the problem is they can't go just a little bit here and there, right? He does need to cycle away as best he can. He's going after the Hierophant, but the Legionnaires are just jumping right on him. He needs to jump out of this situation immediately. He's losing a lot of that momentum, and I feel like we might be falling flat indeed. Doglived calls the GG, and oh my me, 3 rushes in a row did not work out in his favor. That, my friends, is a very difficult pill to swallow for the Escozi enjoyers in the chat. Neblime qualifying with his easiest series of the tournament. Lost a game to Smarty, lost a game to Top Ramen, but did not lose a game to Doglived. It was all rush all the time. Congrats to Neblime for making it in. This does confirm he will play Protoss for another season, since unless he concludes as the champion of Acropolis 4, he will be playing Protoss. And, we got Hit 'em Up, we got Ziki, we might have Oya. There's a lot of players who are participating in the Tribunal stage, or in the main stage of Acropolis, that it's going to be hard for our boy Neblime to make it through. But that is a wrap on the events of the day. And we'll see if Neblime can make good on his promise. I appreciate him sticking to his word nonetheless. Protoss reigns, and Escozi Rain Blood, I guess. I don't know. Blizzard Blood. GG. Well, lads, that was a wrap on the casts for today. Oathbound indeed, yeah. Kasuga was not able to make it past the Escozi Menace. Commiserations, because of the fact that first game did end up getting sacrificed. I feel like it was a really, really good one. I'm going to be sending that to Jujic so that he knows that people did actually use the bottom strip. And honestly, there kept being times where I thought Doglived would get through over the line, but he must have just... it must have been a bit of a tilter. If he thought he was ahead, it was very even. But if he thought he was ahead, and then he got dropped or whatever, then he's decided he's gonna, all right, I'm gonna do the rushes then. But the Magister play from Neblime had some legs, but I do think that there was a timer on that, and I don't know, it was a really cool game. I mixed too many useless Unity, he says. Maybe. The manifold spam was rough. That being said, we will have more tribunals to come. I'm sure I'll see Kasuga and Doglived in them. There are 2 more chances. One of them will be opening up the signups on the 18th. with the ranking update that comes with that. So keep grinding, gentlemen, and I'll see some of you tomorrow for Weekend Wage as well, another place for you to grind those points. Even if you're not Class 2 and you don't think you're going to be Class 2 by the time the 18th rolls around, you can still get to the point where you look like upper Class 3. We invited Thunderslaps as a new upper Class 3. He didn't end up getting much done versus Kasuga, but hopefully he shows up and proves the doubters wrong. And I look forward to seeing that happen later on. GG's, lads. The Tribunal has come to a close. Check out the VODs for the other games on the channel over the next few days. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.